Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Ali. I'm a final year medical student at Cambridge University. And in this video, we're going to be talking about something that's not very often talked about on the internet or anywhere really, and that's what to do if you don't get any offers for medicine, or if you don't make your offer, or dealing with rejection in that particular sphere. One thing to say off the bat, I was lucky enough to get in first time into medicine, and therefore I don't really have any personal experience with dealing with the rejection that comes from not getting an offer for medicine or not making that offer in particular. I do have quite a lot of experience with dealing with rejection generally, which I'll be making a video about at some point further down the line, probably in a few weeks' time. Let me know in the comments if you want to hear that. But I have spoken to a lot of my friends who didn't get in first time, who got in maybe second, third. Actually, I've got a friend who got in, I think, fifth time it was. And I've spoken to these people and asked what tips they would give if they were making a video about this. So I'm just kind of acting as a conduit for them. So I'll start off by giving you some of these tips, kind of fairly quick fire, the general advice that I've been given to give to you guys from people who've been through that experience. And then we'll be cutting to segments of 9 different tips from, again, various medical students, giving their own take on what to do if you find yourself in that position where you've not got any offers or you've not made your offers and so on. So I think first thing to say is that if you're in the position that you got an offer but you didn't make your offer, then the solution is pretty straightforward. You need to apply again if you're still interested in medicine, get your grades behind you this time, work mega hard if you have to, make sure you get those grades. Because to be honest, you've already done the lion's share of the work in getting the offer in the first place. It's just the final hurdle of making that offer, which unfortunately tripped you up. So that's a very targeted area that you need to work on. You probably did everything right. Your personal statement was probably fine. Your interviews were probably quite good, which is why you got the offer in the first place. But then it's just working on the grades. So I'm going to put that aside and kind of aim this video towards people who maybe didn't get any offers for medicine, who were in that sort of position, because I think that's a trickier position to be in. So general advice that I've gotten from people who've been through this. The first thing they said was really think about whether it's what you want to do. Getting 4 rejections first time around can be quite painful, quite disappointing, but it gives you a chance to really kind of look inwards and decide, is this really the career for you? Do you really want to do it? If you do really want to do it, then fantastic, you need to apply again. But if you're in two minds about it, if you're not really sure, and you've put in all that effort applying the first time around and you're not sure if you can kind of do it again, then it's a good time to ask yourself that question. So that's point number 1. Point number 2 is more practical. If you do want to apply again, then look in detail at every aspect of your application, send it around to people, send it around to friends who've gotten in, send it around to people that you know in the years above, and ask them where they think the weak points were. Was it your personal statement? Could you have done more work experience? Did you get the interviews in the first place? If you got the interviews in the first place, then chances are your personal statement and application generally was strong enough, but maybe your performance at interview let you down, and that's something that I'm quite familiar with. Again, we'll talk about it in the later video. So then it's a case of working out, okay, why did my performance at interview let me down? What could I have done differently? Maybe it just didn't go well on the day, and being able to put in more and more interview practice, because this is something that I've heard from quite a lot of doctors as well that I've spoken to about kind of future careers and so on, and they always say that it's not the best person who gets the job, it's the person who performs best at the interview, or the person who's prepared best for the interview. So they always suggested that the interview is the most important part of your application, and when applying for jobs as doctors or as surgeons, you've got your whole CV, you've got publications, presentations, posters, this, that, and the other. But unless your interview performance is stellar on the day, then chances are you're not going to get that job. So I think if you got interviews but then you didn't get the offer subsequently, then maybe interview performance is something to work on, and we've got loads of videos on the channel that can help you kind of sort that out, as it were. But most of it generally does come from practicing with friends and family and teachers and anyone you can get, really. Third point, you want to think about where you're going to apply. A lot of people that I know, when they applied first time around, they said that they didn't think too hard about where they were applying, and therefore, with an average-ish UCAT score, they applied to a university that requires, a score in the 700s, and obviously they didn't get the offer then. So I know it sounds obvious, but really think about where you're applying. Some places don't accept retakes, some places do, some places don't like it when you take a gap year, some places do, all of this stuff. Research the universities actively in advance before applying, and really tactically apply. Because, to be honest, if you're reapplying, then you probably want to go to medical school rather than to go to a particular medical school. So what they say, medicine is kind of the same wherever you go in the UK, so it really doesn't matter where you end up, provided you end up somewhere studying medicine. At least that's that's kind of the line of thinking for most people that I know who are in that position. So yeah, think about where you're going to apply tactically. Point number 4, get excited, because you have a whole year of endless opportunities that are not going to be available to anyone else. And that was probably the salient point that everyone said. Everyone I've spoken to who has not gotten in the first time around was so happy that they didn't get in the first time around in hindsight. Like, obviously it was disappointing and soul crushing at the time, but having had 1 or 2 or 3 gap years and done interesting things, they're really glad to have had that experience. Things that they suggested was traveling, getting a job, working as a healthcare assistant. These experiences that people at university, your friends at university, won't be getting these at all. They're just going to be going to lectures day in, day out, and maybe doing placements and things. Whereas if you get the chance to travel abroad and, I don't know, volunteer in a hospital, volunteer for a charity, that'll enrich you much more as a person than a year of university is going to enrich your friends. So it's not a competition between you and your friends, but I think one way to feel better about, doing the gap year is by making your gap year really, really good and doing things that will improve your profile just as a person generally. Finally, a point that one of my friends said, which I think is a really good one, is don't be too hard on yourself. This person was saying that she got rejected first time around. She thought her application was pretty solid. She thought her interview performance was quite reasonable, but you still got 4 rejections. And she was saying that initially she took it really, really to heart. And for a few weeks was quite sad about it. Didn't really do much. Wasn't really sure what to do because of all the effort she'd put into this application, and therefore, it felt like all this effort went to waste. But what she said is that eventually she actually realized that maybe it wasn't her. It was just that medicine is unfortunately very competitive. There are loads and loads of people wanting to study the subject, and very few spaces, relatively speaking. So while it might not necessarily have been a problem with you, it might just have been that there happened to be more people that wanted to do it than were able to get the offer. So don't be too hard on yourself. I'd say identify the areas that you think you might be weak in and sort of really actively track those down. But there's very little to be gained from kind of feeling bad about yourself or feeling sorry for yourself or sort of thinking that you're not good enough, because thinking you're not good enough is not really the way to improvement. I think the way to improvement is thinking that your performance at this particular domain was not good enough. So if I get rejected after an interview, I think, okay, my performance at this interview wasn't very good, therefore I need to improve my interview performance. Whereas I think a lot of people might be going along the lines of, I didn't get the offer, therefore I'm not good enough, or that general genre of kind of self-flagellating things that we tell ourselves. But yeah, don't be too hard on yourself. Work on the things that you need to work on, but ultimately don't worry, because things will hopefully work out for the best. So those are my kind of 5 tips that I got from various people, from speaking to various people who've been through this. Now we're going to run through 9, 8, something like that, different tips from various medical students. Some of us have gotten first time, some of us hadn't, but we've all spoken to people, we were all friends with people who didn't get in the first time, so we all kind of know what people say about their gap years. But yeah, we're going to go through these 9 tips coming up. What I would say for people who haven't made the grades or who didn't meet their offers or anything like that is, I mean, I want to say don't worry, but I mean, of course you're going to worry. What I would say is that there are a lot of people in my year and that I'm friends with who didn't get the offers first time around, who took gap years or even took 2 gap years, and every single one of those people have been happy that they took the gap years. There's not been a single person who says, you know what, I wish I'd gotten into medicine first time. They all say, I'm glad I did my gap year, I worked as a healthcare assistant, I traveled the world, I did something cool. But they're all always glad that they had that experience. So it probably seems like the end of the world if you don't get the grades or if you don't make that offer, but gap years are pretty good, and provided you use that time well, you will definitely be glad for it in the long run.
So I think you will know when that situation happens how disappointed you were. If you were really upset by it and definitely have a passion for doing medicine still, then I would say go for it. If you think that you will then be able to sort of retake the exams if you need to, and be able to get the grades, then that will show a huge amount of determination and persistence and sort of a real passion and drive to do what you want to do, and that will show in universities when you make a further application. If you at that time think actually no, medicine wasn't for me, then fine, do something else, do a science degree maybe, and it may be that you can do a 3-year science degree and then at that point decide whether now that you've gone and done something else, whether you now want to switch to to doing undergraduate or graduate medicine, whichever you want to do. When I applied to medicine, I didn't apply to a fifth choice. I just thought, if I don't get medicine, I'm going to be trying again, because there was nothing else that I wanted to do at all. And so for me, I knew it would have been a case of, I haven't got the grades this time, I will try my best to do them next year and try again until I get in. For some people, they take that fifth option because they know that they might want to do something else in the end, and that's fine. And you've still got the option later on of changing your mind.
Very long story short, when I was in sixth form, don't need to go into details, but basically I didn't get into medicine. But when I was in my final year, I applied for medicine again so that I could start a few months after graduating. I didn't get in that time either. So after I graduated, I had a year off where I worked as a healthcare assistant, which I think is actually probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I learned so much, and I think I grew into myself. And when I was at Leicester, actually, I learned how to learn. And it definitely helped me in medicine. So when I did eventually apply again to get for the graduate entry courses, I did actually secure a spot. So I think I tried to apply for medicine, I think 4 times. I think got in on my 4th attempt, basically. So there's nothing wrong with not getting in straight away, because I got there, and in fact I think I'm grateful that I didn't get in first of all, because I think I've had a lot more life experience. My advice is definitely, I say don't take it to heart, but it is quite hard actually. I think what's important about if you don't get the grades or don't get offers is bouncing back, because if it's something that you really want to do, it's definitely something that I definitely advise that you stick with. So if you don't get the grades, do your resits. If you don't get the grades, do what I did, go to uni and prove that you can succeed in a particular area, and then use that grade. If you don't succeed in an interview, just ask for feedback. I think some places actually do give you feedback. Ask for feedback so you know what went wrong, so you know what to fix. If you don't do well in the entrance exams, then just apply based on that. So if you do your UK CAT at the start of September and you don't get a good enough score, then maybe go towards universities that don't take UK CAT, if that makes sense.
So I will say that I honestly believe that if you're destined to do medicine, you will get in eventually. You may not get in first time, may not even get in second time, but you will always get a spot. And I think that motivation and determination is what defines medics. It's not how smart you are, it's not how many A levels you get or how many GCSEs you get, it's how hardworking you are, because a lot of the time the content is not that difficult, it's just that there's so much of it. So even if you don't get in first time, I think that you will honestly just keep applying and always learn from what you've done beforehand. I think that's the most important thing. You can actually write to universities afterwards and ask, maybe why didn't my interview go well, or why didn't you not ask me for interview? So make sure that you get that feedback, work on that feedback, and if you do take time off, make sure that you make the most of that time off. So if you're taking a year out, make sure that you volunteer, make sure that you're in hospitals, make sure that you're working on your science, improving those grades if you're doing retakes. Make sure that you make the most of any time that you have, so that when you come back to apply again, you can give it your best shot.
So I think with things like this, you have to be very realistic as well. But you kind of also have to decide what you really want to do in life. If you don't get in the first time, and loads of people don't get into medicine the first try, you don't beat yourself up about it. If that's really what you want to do, keep going at it. Do work experience, figure out what is it that really pushes you, and try to figure out why, and look back on yourself, why you didn't make it, what could you have done differently, and really think about that. Grades are really important, obviously. We have to be realistic about that. So we have to also understand if you're not the best student, maybe there's something else similar to medicine that you could be doing as well, because medicine in itself is quite an academic thing, and it's a little unfair on yourself as well to put yourself into something that you might struggle a little bit with, and there's so many other things that you could do as well. So I suppose really looking back and deciding what it is that you really want to do with life.
Yeah, I think not getting into medicine it'll be a big knock on confidence,
Definitely,
which I think is a big barrier. But it might be the first big failure you'll have experienced, and probably be one of many in your life. So it's important to be able to deal with that in a productive and constructive way. So I think similar to Marcus, really reflecting and almost not wallowing in self-pity a little bit.
I mean, you can wallow in self-pity for a little bit, and then you get up and realize, reflect.
Reflect realistically. I'd say if medicine is something you're absolutely passionate about and you really want to do, then go for it. Because actually, sometimes I think the grades are so high for medicine, and actually, what makes a really great doctor is someone who can work hard and be empathetic and talk to patients in a really great way and understand patients. And actually, there are lots of routes into medicine. So even if you don't make the grades for undergrad medicine, you can do graduate medicine.
There's so many different ways you can get there. It's all about, if you want it, work hard for it. And as she says, that's the important thing. Work really working hard, because that's what people have to do in medicine.
So my main thing to say is that, you know, medicine is a very long career. Even if you progress at the first time at every hurdle, you're still looking at a really long career and lots of different hoops to jump through, lots of hurdles. So if you think it's something you want to do, a year is really negligible in the scheme of things. If you've been rejected from your first application, ask for feedback, you know, send your personal statement around and see if anybody thinks what you could have done differently, and try and learn from it. But you really shouldn't be put off just because you didn't get in that year, because it's a complete lifestyle commitment once you sign up to medicine. So if you want to do it, if you wanted to do it in 2017, you should still want to do it in 2018 from an application point of view. And also, you know, a lot of people do get rejected at various different stages. Personally, you know, at Cambridge, a couple of my friends are now here as medical students, having been rejected from all 4 medical schools, sometimes including Oxbridge, sometimes not including Oxbridge. So don't worry if you do receive a load of rejections. You should just pick yourself up and think, if this is something I do want to do, it's worth fighting for.
Yeah, so if you think that medicine is a career which you really want to go into, think about retaking your A-levels. Make the most use of any gap years which you have. Sometimes you could not get in because you've applied to schools which demand a higher range of grades than the ones which you got. So now armed with the grades which you have now got, you can pitch your applications appropriately. But make the most use of the gap year which you have. Use it to obviously enjoy yourself, but at the same time as well, explore whether medicine is a career which you really want to get into. There are a number of charities which you can involve yourself with. You could even work part-time as a healthcare assistant, or full-time as a healthcare assistant, and you could work as a phlebotomist. You could get involved in the medical sector without actually being a doctor yet. Take the long view to your career. Medicine is a really long path, and before you start on it, because it kind of can be a real yellow brick road all the way through until you become a consultant, but like before you even start on this path, think about whether you really want to do it.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of this video. That was 5 tips at the beginning, and then like 9 tips from me and, again, various other medical students, talking about what you might want to think about if you're in this position where you've not gotten your offer, or you haven't made your offer, or, you know, stuff like that. I hope you found it useful. It's probably quite a long video, but I hope there was something that you took away that can kind of help you in this coming year. It's a difficult position to be in. Dealing with rejection is never straightforward, and especially when you've worked so hard for it, it can be really hard. But I think it's all about kind of looking to the future and not really dwelling on the past, as it were. So yeah, thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. More stuff about preparing for interviews and vlogs of life as a medical student, if you're into watching that sort of thing, coming up. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.